Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k Tyranids. In today's video we're going to be doing a full review of the Maleceptor from the Tyranids Index, going through the datasheet and as always giving our Planet 40k rating at the end of the video. So the points cost for the Maleceptor 165 points, it used to be 220 points, so a nice reduction in points there, which is quite a lot of the monsters in the index have actually had a reduction in points. It was only the Toxicrene that we did recently that actually got a nerf in terms of points cost. Now the model is equipped with the Psychic Overload, massive scything talons, and of course it's a monster, a Psyker, and it has the Synapse keyword, so therefore anything within 6 inches will be getting Synapse within Synapse range. So let's move into the actual front of the data card and start with the statistics. 8-inch movement, kind of standard for our monsters. Toughness has gone up to 11 from 8, which again is quite standard for this edition. Fairly resilient there. 3+ armor save, lost a wound, only 14 wounds now. Leadership 7 and objective control is 4. So fairly resilient overall. I mean, it also does have an invulnerable save of a 4+, which gives it even more durability. And of course it's got a wounds table. When it is below 5 wounds, it's just simply a -1 to the hit roll. Whereas it previously used to be when it's down to 7 wounds or less. So it is slightly better in terms of the damage bracketing. Now as for the weapons, well, the Psychic Overload is the range attack. Now of course it didn't used to have this in 9th edition, it used to have the Psychic, well it did, it was an ability in fact. And previously it was a Psychic Power, Warp Charge 7 or more I believe it was. Just trying to read it out here. And the closest eligible unit used to suffer a certain amount of mortal wounds depending on how many wounds were left in the unit. Now it's different. I actually quite like what this is. It's a pretty decent weapon. So let's go through what it is. It's got Blast. So every unit that's got 5 models in it, you're going to get an extra shot for every 5. It's also a Psychic Power. So therefore, any anti-psycho abilities will obviously nerf these weapons. Now it's got 18-inch range, which isn't the best. It means you're going to have to get a bit more closer to your enemy units in order to fire with this. D6 plus 3 attacks, which is okay. D6 plus 3, I mean that's a minimum of 4, maximum of 9, that's okay. Ballistic skill 3 plus, strength 10, -2 AP and 3 damage. So really this is like a bit of a Terminator killer, because your wounding Terminators on the 2+. The -2 AP is probably going to put them on a 4+ invulnerable save anyway, and the 3 damage of course removes models for every single one that goes through. So yeah, fairly decent one. Now Terminators come in normally in 5s or more, so you're going to get an additional shot as well for that. So it'll be D6 plus 3 plus 1, or if it's a 10-man unit it'll be D6 plus 3 plus 2. So you're going to get a fair amount of shots with it, is kind of what I'm getting at. Now the melee side of the data card, it's the massive scything talons, and it's got 2 profiles. The strike profile is 3 attacks, weapon skill 3 plus, strength 9, -2 AP and D6 plus 1 damage. Now this used to be strength 10 and it used to be -4 AP and it used to be 2d3 damage. D6 plus 1 is probably about the same. Before it was an average of 4 if there is such thing as an average of D3, and D6 plus 1 is what? It's about 4 as well. So it is kind of the same, but you never know. You could roll a 1 on the D6 and just get only 2, or you could roll a 6 on the D6 and get 7. So it's up and down with the actual damage, but the strength going down to 9 from 10 does hurt slightly because monsters and vehicles this edition have gone up in toughness, just like our Maleceptor toughness has gone up to 11. So against those units, it's going to be slightly harder to wound them, and also toughness 5 models, you're now wounded on 3s, you've just missed out on being able to wound on 2s. So I don't like the strength change. The AP is fine because that's kind of standard this edition anyway, they've knocked the AP down of quite a lot of weapons. I just wish it was strength 10. Now the sweep profile of the massive scything talons is, well, it's 6 attacks. We used to get 9. We used to get triple the amount of attacks, where every attack used to be 3 attacks, if that makes sense. Weapon skill 3 plus, strength 7, -1 AP and 2 damage. It used to be -3. So we've lost a bit of AP there. I did quite like the -3 because it was a Space Marine intercessor killer back then. So it used to put them on a 6+ armor save, and each one that went through was removing a model. It still is removing a model because it is damage 2, but it's only -1 AP, so that will give them a 4+ armor save, so it's only half a chance of actually removing them after hitting and actually wounding. With only 6 attacks as well, you're not doing a massive amount there in terms of damage. Now into the abilities side of the data card, we've got Deadly Demise D3 because it's a monster, that's basically death throws from 9th edition. And Shadow in the Warp as well as Synapse. Because it's a Synapse monster, it's always going to be within Synapse range of itself, which is good. So the Battle Shock test will be affected. You're using 3 dice instead of 2. Which is nice because we've only got leadership 7+. I mean, I say only, that's not too bad to be honest. Some of our monsters have an 8+. 7+ is okay. But you're getting an extra dice anyway, so not likely to fail Battle Shock. And Shadow in the Warp is one of many monsters within our list, or one of many units within our list that could use that ability once per game. Now the unique ability it has, which is it's another one of those words that I can't pronounce. Encephalic Diffusion. I'm going to go with that. It's an aura and a psychic ability. While an enemy unit is within 6 inches of this model, each time they make an attack, it's virtually a -1 to their hit roll, and if they're below half strength, it's a -1 to the wound roll as well. So 6 inches isn't a massive amount, of course, but that will, of course, include anyone that's trying to get into a fight in engagement range. They're of course going to be within 6. So if you are fighting our Maleceptor, it's going to be a -1 to your hit roll. Potentially a -1 to wound roll if they're below half strength as well, which is it's a bonus. You're not always going to get that one off, but the -1 to hit is definitely use. So that's the data card. It's okay. I'm not saying it's the best. It's not the worst. Kind of feels a little bit of an in-between of an Exocrine because of the range capability, and then sort of in between of an Exocrine and a melee monster. I don't know whether a Hive Tyrant might be a bit too much, or a Horusvex, something like that. It's sort of an in-between both. It can shoot, but it needs to get close, and it's got Synapse. It can still fight. Jack of all trades, master of none. I know I use that phrase quite often on this channel, but it really does feel like that. So then we come on to some unit synergy. There's only really the Venom Thropes that I can talk about here with the Foul Spores. Getting a benefits of cover to our unit. We're not going to get the stealth ability because we're a monster, but getting the benefits of cover could assist us. If there's any -1 AP weapons, it will keep our 3+ armor save intact. Of course, we can't go to a 2+ this edition because that's not a thing. But yeah, it's only really the Venom Thropes that I can see that are going to have any sort of synergy. We don't need a Synapse monster or creature or anything. We don't need Synapse because we've got it already. Maybe we can look at a Hive Tyrant to use some stratagems, but in fact that's the next topic. There's only really one stratagem that I can think of that's going to be useful for the Maleceptor, which is Rapid Regeneration, which is useful for everything really. You're going to get a 5+4 no pain save because it's in Synapse. It's 1 command point and you use it in your opponent's shooting phase or fight phase. That will keep your guy up and running. Now there is a stratagem where you could change your hyper adaptation. I don't think you're going to be using it as much. I mean, there's no devastating wounds, there's no... I mean, yes, you could turn on Swarming Instincts and have sustained hits 1 perhaps, maybe, but you've only got 6 attacks. So is it worth it for just this Maleceptor? Not really. Obviously it's army wide, but you're not going to select it purely based on the one on the actual Maleceptor. The precision ability with Hive Predators, maybe you'll get 1/6 in there, and with the stratagem you can use it as a 5+ rather than a 6. I've said the stratagem. I should actually mention what stratagem it is. Just bear with me. It's the Synaptic Instinct stratagem. No, Synaptic Insight stratagem. So that's going to allow you to have a hyper adaptation that you haven't actually selected in the game. You could of course get the High Predator's ability on, and then you want to be taking Adrenal Surge for the 5+ critical hits. That one's 2 command points, a little bit expensive. But yeah, if you've got 6 attacks, and 2 of those on average will be precision, if you've got precision on and critical hits on, and they'll be going up against a character with, you know, 3 damage or d6+1 damage depending on what you're doing. You got the options there. But yeah, really, the battlefield role, what are we doing with the Maleceptor? Like I said, it's an in-between between the Exocrine and a melee monster, so it isn't going to be your backline monster holder. It's not going to be your backline monster that's holding an objective, but it's also not going to be your front-facing sort of monster that's going to be your first wave of attack. You've got your Tyrants, you've got your Horusvexes, you've got your Carnifexes and a One-Eye, you've got those kind of units to do that. It's going to be sort of a second or third wave, because you still want to be making use of your actual ranged weapons and you want to be selecting your targets. So maybe a no man's land objective may be where it wants to go. Also, you want to be harassing opponents within the no man's land that are on objectives. You want to be harassing them with your range attacks, your melee attacks. Give them a -1 to their hit rolls, get within 6 inches. So whether they're shooting within 6 or they're fighting, obviously within 6, a -1 to their hit rolls could be quite good, and potentially a -1 to wound as well. Let's get into the pros and cons for the Maleceptor. Start with the pros. It is very durable, toughness 11, 14 wounds, a 3+ armor save, 4+ invulnerable save, that's quite tanky. That's going to take a lot to get rid of. It's got Synapse, which is quite nice. So every unit within 6 inches is going to have the Synapse range on. It's got decent range output with the D6 plus 3 attacks with strength 10 minus 2 AP 3 damage. I think that's quite good. It's not the best. I think the Exocrines is probably better. I mean, I know the Exocrines is only strength 8 minus 3 AP and 3 damage, but you've got a 36 inch range there. And it's heavy too, so you can potentially be hitting on a 2+ with those. Whereas this guy, it's not got the heavy keyword, so therefore you're not going to be hitting on a 2+. It's got a bit of use in melee as well, as we mentioned, with the 2 profiles from the massive Scythe Talons. And the -1 to hit, -1 to wound within 6 inches, which is very good, especially for the fight phase. As for the cons, the range attack is only 18 inch range, so you're going to have to get this thing forward in order to make use of the ranged weapon. It's not as potent as it was in 9th edition. You don't have the mortal wound outlay that we had. You've not got the adaptive physiologies, you've not got all the... In fact, just the psychic powers, you've lost all those things, haven't you? So we've lost all that stuff. And finally, the Exocrine, I believe, is just a better pick for Tyranids. So let's get on to my Planet 40k rating for the Maleceptor today. At this moment in time, I think it's just average. I think it's okay, middle of the road. I'm going to go with the Planet 40k rating of 3-star. So guys, that is my rating. What's yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe on your exits. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.